9. The Lounge. On the night of October 9, 2021, gunfire erupted outside of a private club in Albany, New York, leaving 29-year-old Alexander Bolton dead and 6 others injured. What started out as a verbal altercation had quickly escalated into violence, according to Police Chief Eric Hawkins, who said that officers found between 60 and 70 shell casings at the scene. Not much is known about the club, which had caught the attention of local officials long before the shooting occurred. Some called it the Lounge, while others referred to it as the Suicide Squad Clubhouse, and it had noticeable ties to biker clubs. It wasn't open to the public, and although people were periodically seen coming and going, it didn't seem as if the building was being used regularly. The city had repeatedly ordered the owner to cease operations due to alleged code violations, but the police were never called there until the night of the shooting. Officers found 2 handguns with their serial numbers removed and arrested 10 people at the scene, but it's unclear whether they've identified the person responsible for killing Bolton. After the shooting, the city cut the building's power and issued another cease and desist order. Mayor Kathy Sheehan said that nobody should have been there that night and that the owner lacked some of the documents necessary to run a private club. The owner claimed that he had the proper paperwork and that while there were some issues with obtaining the permits and certificates he needed, those matters had been smoothed over. While he didn't deny that he had been cited for code violations, he said that he was running his business legally and legitimately. He cryptically described the Lounge as a private club where members hang out, watch TV, and drink, and where private organizations hold events. The venue remains closed for now. 8. Swingers Club Scandal. After receiving complaints from neighbors back in 1999 about illicit sexual activity going on at some adult clubs in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Broward County Sheriff's deputies conducted a lengthy undercover investigation. They witnessed all sorts of intimate activity and arrested around 50 people at 2 establishments. Those charged were all accused of misdemeanor lewd and lascivious behavior, but many challenged the way the law was being interpreted. After all, everything going on inside the clubs was consensual, and the people who went there paid membership fees and knew what to expect, giving defense lawyers reason to argue that the activities were not offensive to anyone who could see them happening. In fact, at least one of the clubs posted clear signs stating that anyone who didn't want to see intimate activity should avoid going into the designated areas for it. At least 5 judges told prosecutors that they had to prove that someone other than the undercover officers was offended by what they saw going on inside the clubs. Many of the cases were dropped, and some defendants got their charges dismissed in exchange for doing community service. But the controversial case and the publicity that came with it upended the lives of several club-goers, including a Fort Lauderdale police officer who was a member at one of the establishments, as well as 2 teachers who were put on paid leave while their employers took steps to try firing them. At least 8 club members sued the Broward County Sheriff's Office, arguing that their arrest should never have happened and that the raids exposed a part of their private lives that they didn't want their families, colleagues, and sometimes even their friends to know about. 7. Stormy Daniels. Former adult actress and erotic dancer Stephanie Clifford, famously known as Stormy Daniels, found herself at the center of headline-making controversy after claiming that she had an affair with Donald Trump back in 2006. Just months after the news broke, Daniels was arrested in a police raid at the Sirens Gentlemen's Club in Columbus, Ohio, where she was making a special appearance. Authorities accused her of violating the state's law forbidding strippers from touching customers, claiming that she'd come into inappropriate contact with 2 undercover vice officers. But as a guest performer, Daniels was exempt from the law, and the charges were dropped just 12 hours later. She accused the police of targeting her out of their loyalty to Donald Trump and sued the city of Columbus for alleged civil rights violations. Regardless of whether their motivation was political, an investigation found strong evidence that at least one officer seemed determined to arrest Daniels in the days leading up to her appearance at the club, indicating that she was indeed targeted. The disgraced dancer received a $450,000 settlement, but said that the lawsuit was never about money. It was about bringing awareness to the injustices that she suffered. In a statement, Daniels said she was proud of the city of Columbus for taking responsibility for the incident, holding the officers accountable, and making changes to prevent something like this from happening to someone else. 6. Progress Club. Founded in 1912 in Rockville, Maryland, the Progress Club was originally a men-only organization of prominent local businessmen. Today, it functions as a social club dedicated mainly to charity work. Back in 1984, Rockville police raided the club's headquarters following a months-long investigation into suspected illegal gambling. 21 members were charged with misdemeanors when the bust interrupted their late-night card games. Many of those arrested were elderly men in their 70s who'd been playing cards for years and saw it as harmless. Authorities claim that only 1/5 of the Progress Club members knew about and participated in high-stakes gambling that regularly went on there. Then, Police Chief Jared D. Stout claimed there was a $300 minimum buy-in, which is a lot of money even now, but was a lot more 38 years ago. The games were held several times a week. During the raid, police counted 33 tables that were in use and seized over $27,000 in gambling proceeds. While the club's members defended their gambling as a long-standing tradition, Stout alleged that it was a lot less innocent than that, telling the Washington Post, "This is not Las Vegas night at some PTA at an elementary school or some civic club." At least 14 members got their charges dropped in exchange for performing community service. David Zybert, who was 73 years old at the time, told the news outlet that the incident wasn't going to stop him from playing bridge and other card games for money, and that the only difference was that now he and his friends would play in someone's home, away from the prying eyes of law enforcement. 5. Brian Anthony Roden. In July of 2021, 46-year-old Eugene Siller was found shot dead on the putting green at the Pine Tree Country Club in Atlanta, Georgia. Two other men, 46-year-old Henry Valdez and 76-year-old Paul Pearson, had also been fatally shot. Their bodies were found in the back of Pearson's pickup truck. Both victims' hands, legs, and mouth were bound with tape. As investigators pieced together what happened, they found evidence pointing toward 23-year-old Brian Anthony Roden as the suspected killer. It appeared as though the men who were murdered in the pickup truck were Roden's intended victims, and that Siller was killed simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time and witnessing the crime in progress. Just hours after the murders, Roden was charged with several unrelated misdemeanor traffic violations. He bonded out but was soon back in custody. He faced 3 counts each of murder, aggravated assault, and kidnapping. Since his arrest, Roden has adamantly maintained his innocence. He's currently locked up, but someone is managing his social media accounts and appealing to his followers for support. Meanwhile, prosecutors have revealed that they intend to seek the death penalty. Only limited details surrounding the disturbing case have been released to the public, leaving many curious about the circumstances leading to the triple murder. Hopefully, these details will be revealed throughout the trial's proceedings. 4. Andrew Ellington. In May 2018, agents from North Carolina's Alcohol Law Enforcement (ALE) agency made over 130 arrests in a sweeping weekend-long raid across the state. Several business owners found themselves in hot water with the law, including 26-year-old Andrew Ellington, who owned a private music club in Asheville called Ellington Underground. He was allegedly caught with multiple small bags of cocaine and was charged with felony cocaine possession and misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia. The agency accused his business of being open to the public and staying open past operating hours with customers in possession of alcohol. Ellington Underground had just opened the previous year when the raid occurred. As a result of the charges, its owner faced possible fines, suspension, and/or having his liquor license revoked. The business no longer operates, and its last social media post dates back to around the time of Ellington's arrest, indicating that the incident may have led to its permanent closure. 3. Keith Boyd. Police in Marshall, Texas rushed to a local private club one night in 2015 after receiving a tip from a member about a disturbance that was going on inside. When they arrived at the Parisian, they encountered 39-year-old Keith Boyd, who looked like he'd been in a fight and had a bloody cut on his face. Officers tried to help Boyd, but he was reportedly uncooperative and left the scene. Less than an hour later, 911 dispatchers received a call from a little girl claiming that someone was firing a gun in a nearby home, which turned out to be Boyd's residence. The cops found evidence indicating that he had shot a gun inside the house. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, a club patron told an officer who'd stayed near the Parisian that Boyd had returned to the establishment with a gun and that he was looking for the man he'd fought with earlier. Police found an AR-15 type rifle in Boyd's car and quickly apprehended him. He was charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. Marshall Police Chief Eddie Camper commended the vigilant civilians who reported Boyd's concerning activity and said that their decision to notify the police probably prevented a tragedy and helped to make the community safer. He also praised police officers for taking swift action to take an angry and armed felon into custody. 2. Ron Como. Ron Como was a respected community member when he became the secretary-treasurer of the Adriatic Marshagian Club in New Haven, Connecticut in 2015. He had known many fellow members of the Italian-American Social Club for years or even decades, and they trusted him. After all, they had no reason not to. It wasn't until 5 years later, in mid-2020, that members realized something was concerningly wrong with the club's finances. They needed money to make some repairs to their building, but Como reportedly hesitated to withdraw money from the organization's bank account to cover the costs. Club president Jacques Villette grew suspicious over the treasurer's reluctance and checked the account, which should have around $100,000 in it, only to see a balance of just $4,000. The club hired an accounting firm to investigate, and the local police soon got involved. Evidence revealed that Como stole around $97,000 from the account over a 5-year period, during which time he also gambled over $163,000 away on slot machines. The timing of his casino trips lined up with when he transferred large amounts of the club's money into his private bank account. Detectives also said that Como spent hundreds of dollars on pornography. The arrest warrant noted that during a meeting to retrieve the club's keys and some other property, Villette asked Como how he could do such a thing to the club and his friends. Como allegedly responded by saying that he was surprised it took the club so long to catch him. Earlier this year, the 69-year-old was charged with first-degree larceny. Shortly after the arrest, Como's lawyer Greg Cheritelli told the Connecticut Post that his client planned to plead not guilty to the crime, and that, like anyone else accused of a crime, he is entitled to the presumption of innocence. 1. Richard Chapman and Joe Varner. One day in 2013, an Alabama man named Corbett Robinson decided to give his wife a tour of his hometown, Union Springs, while they were driving with their baby in the car. He pulled into the parking lot of the Union Springs Country Club to turn around, but was quickly met by 2 men on a golf cart who drove over from a nearby golf course and began verbally abusing him. Robinson later told police that one of the men pulled a gun out but did not point it at him, and that they followed him to the police station. Investigators charged Richard Chapman and Joe Varner each with 1 count of misdemeanor harassment in relation to the incident. WSFA 12 News reported that 2 of the country club's members tried convincing the station not to air the story, claiming that they didn't want any good or bad publicity. Reporter Brian Henry denied their requests, and they commented that they denied any wrongdoing in the case. One of the suspects told WSFA that Robinson was the aggressor, and that he was the one who started cursing and got an attitude. He also said that the club has a right to question non-members coming through. Thanks for watching. Would you rather find out that your membership fees to a private club were funding high-level organized crime, or live next door to a cultish and secretive group that seemed to be controlling its members' lives? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.